hand
to do
over.
this.
Forward, please. To give our invocation tonight. He's with Harmony Baptist Church. Tad Armstead and I were talking at the gym a couple of weeks ago while he was working out and I was sitting there. And Tad has spoken very highly of you. And then tonight, when you I'm a preacher in here. I told him it was Tad's fault, and Jeremiah never wanted you to come do this, so you talked to him about that afterward.
Yeah. Well, you have to let them know how I do later.
If you would, please proceed.
Yes, sir. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Most gracious, loving Father, we just thank you, Lord, for another day that you have provided, Lord. Lord, what a beautiful day it was, and we just praise you for it, Lord. This evening, Lord, as we gather here for business, Lord, I just look to your word, and your word says, Lord, to pray for our leaders. So, Lord, I just lift each and every leader here, Lord, director, and those who have reports, Lord, I just lift them up to you and ask, Lord, that you would just guide and lead them. Lord, your word also says that if we need wisdom, just to ask, Lord. So I ask, Lord, this evening that you would give each and every person here wisdom and discernment to make the decisions, Lord, to lead this beautiful city, Lord, that you have given us. And Lord, I just pray that any decisions that are made, Lord, will be honoring and glorifying to you, would bring blessing upon this city, and Lord, bring blessing upon the people that call this city home. So Lord, we just thank you so much for this evening and ask your guidance. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Sound like you've done that before. Let me call this meeting to order of the January 14th City of Monroe City Council. Hey, Mr. Boyce. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present, save Miss Malcolm. She had an event to attend tonight. I need a motion of the approval, an approval of the agenda, please.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Ms. Sams to approve. Is there a second? Second. A second. And a second by Ms. Brown, and apparently we need to add something to the agenda. Okay. We'll add qualifying fees to
Item
new business.
1B, new business.
1B. Thank you. Is there any questions, any comments about the agenda with the addition? So I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. The approval of the consent agenda this month would be council minutes and executive session minutes from last month, HPC minutes from October, Downtown Development Authority, and Convention and Visitors Bureau from November. I need a motion for the approval of the consent agenda, please.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Over the last 7 years, I've tried to call in folks on a pretty regular basis who exemplify community, people that we're proud of, whether it's athletic teams. Hands of Hope has come in a number of times. We've had some great community groups that have really helped build Monroe. As Hurricane Helene hit about 6 weeks ago, there was just an outpouring of love and support from our community for East Georgia, North Carolina, and we even sent quite a bit to the Valdosta area as well. So first, I'm going to ask Ms. Rebecca Vassy to come forward. She's example number one. Christy Bass is example number two. We'll talk about her in a minute. Rebecca is one of our young game changers. She helped steer Monroe to where we are and to where we're heading as part of the Young Game Changers group that we had in Monroe 6 years ago now.
It's 2019.
So she has a heart for this place. She's a resident. She started a community called Georgia Hikes. Got this call and said, hey, we'd like to help do kind of a donation drive to help the people of East Georgia and in North Carolina. And we're Georgia Hikes. And I said, that's great. And I expected 12 or 13 people in this little hiking group. And how many people do you have following you right now?
We're approaching 300,000 on Instagram.
So a little bit larger than the 12 or 13 that I thought. But she and her friend Jen did a drive, collected everything from water to diapers to towels and coats, and just a fantastic person. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you as a model for others.
Thank you.
And you can say anything you want. I know you said you'd be nervous, so you don't have to. But I do appreciate you coming out, and I have something for you.
Thank you.
Pardon the penmanship. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Does anybody have any questions for her before we let her sit down? Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Christy Bass. I think everybody knows Seabass. She is the owner of Last Call Event Staffing. She moved from Monroe for about a week and missed it so much that she came back and moved as close to City Hall as you can get. I mean, so if you step out the side over here, you can probably throw a rock and hit her apartment.
I had to get back down here.
I noticed on Facebook that Christy has done just a handful of drives where she takes tons of stuff to North Carolina. Have you hit any of the East Georgia yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Would love to.
Okay. What have you been taking?
We've gotten clothes, we've gotten heaters, we've gotten water, food, blankets, just anything that people were willing to donate that was worth taking, I took, and have given it to a couple of friends that have taken stuff. We borrowed a big van from Jeff Lott at JL Designs. He let us use that because the outcome was way more than I ever expected on that first run, so.
That is fantastic.
Community effort.
No, we do, and we do. We have church and community groups that are taking things, but to have two individuals that just really stand out and exemplify the love that we share with our community it's just nice to see that this is Monroe, right? So, I have something for you too. No gift cards, sorry. You know? You'll have to put it in penmanship. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Bailey, do we have any public comment tonight? Thank you, ladies, for being here. By the way, this is the business part. You don't have to sit here. I mean, I know you have things you want to do. We're fun to watch and all, but you really don't have to stay. Yes, ma'am. Moving to business item, city administrator report. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't do my normal report. Some of you have asked that I dive into the House Bill 581 overview, and so I'll try to do it as quickly as I can. I'll hit a few slides. I've borrowed a lot of this from Walton County's chief appraiser, Tommy Knight. He put some of this together, and then I went back and added a few points that make it a little more pointed to the city of Monroe or other cities in general. All right, so House Bill 581, I'll give you a little background. It was basically in reaction to the skyrocketing home values or assessments that we saw primarily 2020 through about 2022, right? But the Gold Dome created I think it was pretty much a bipartisan piece of legislation to address how quickly they could go up. So what it does is place caps or limits on the assessed value of the homesteaded parcels. So essentially, they hope to use an index like a CPI. They have not stated what that'll be, but it'll probably be a state-based CPI. And it allows for only a maximum of a 3% home value increase per year. But, you know, if your CPI is 1.8%, you're just going to end up with a maximum reassessment of 1.8% that next year. The bill also provides for a possible floating local option sales tax, aka FLOST. So you hear that word a few times. And so the point of that sales tax was to be to recoup, for local governments to recoup some of their funding. One of the other provisions of the bill is that even if one city in Walton County, for instance, were to opt out, then everybody has to opt out. It's an all or none situation. There has been some confusion out there about how the county is structured. They already have a fixed homestead, so it is not going anywhere. It does not float like this bill. So in the eyes of HB 581, their homestead exemption is stronger than what HB 581 provides for. Therefore, they are opting out, or seem to be on the path to opt out, because that's just how the law is written. By them opting out, that does not then impact us, like in other counties where you might see some other counties opt out. A little bit of a unique provision there. So moving forward, each city, as well as the county, has that opt-out provision, but we have to have 3 public hearings, all right? So if you don't opt out, you're automatically in, right? And we have to complete these public hearings for the opt-out by March 1st of this year, so it's coming up quickly. One thing to note, that this does not mean that your property taxes will automatically go up if you opt out, okay? This is just home valuations. You still, as council, set millage rates based on the valuations. And for most of the last 20 years, we've done rollbacks. We didn't this past year, and then in 2019, we did not, due to a unique circumstance. But every other year, those millage rates have been rolled back because we have seen increases in those home values and total digest value. So one other thing that I wanted to put in there is it has no effect on the existing senior school tax exemptions, right? So you've already heard that the school system is opting out of HB 581. Well, it does not affect that existing exemption at all, okay? Moving forward, let's talk about that FLOST a little bit. So it's offered as a potential revenue replacement. The problem was that November 2024 referendum did not offer the ability to have the FLOST on the same ballot. So the voters voted yes, by and large, for the homestead exemption to come back before you, but it did not authorize the FLOST. So now, in order to have a FLOST, you would have to hold a separate referendum probably later this year. If we were to do a FLOST, that's if you opted in as well, we would have to do an intergovernmental agreement with Walton County and all the other cities. If you look back at what happened during the last agreement, IGA, with local option sales tax, we did not have the power as a city that the county did. Thereby, they were able to take more of our revenue. That's just a fact. So we would kind of be operating under the same rules and probably wouldn't see as great of a return or replacement value in that sales tax if we were to opt in, okay? And the school systems, by and large, opted out across the state, primarily because they were not even allowed to have their own FLOST either. So that was another reason you see a lot of boards of education opt out. So of interest here is, you know, this is just kind of my explanation of the bill. Do we have local control? You're somewhat ceding a lot of this local control and the ability to set your millage rate appropriately. You can still set millage rates, but it makes it a little bit harder when you're trying to balance the equity of your tax digest at large, right? So the state is now kind of throwing a big blanket over your ability to control how you need to operate in year to year and see things fit. So Monroe's initial cost, we calculated, would only be about $51,000 in year one. Doesn't sound dramatic, but I'll show you in the next slide how that compounds and can compound quickly. So in a decade, really, it could equal hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. One other thing to keep in mind is the tax loss burdens would dramatically start to shift from residential properties, homesteaded properties, to commercial properties, primarily mom and pop type businesses, and to renters. So rental properties would not have that luxury of the homestead. So you'll see a lot of upward rent pressure in a community like Monroe that we have a pretty large rental population. Just thinking about that local control, again, the city councils of the future will be placed in tougher positions to keep your funding tied to the service levels. So you're going to have to do a lot more advertising. You'll have to hold more public hearings in the future when you may need to increase your millage rate if the digest didn't grow as much as perhaps your population did, and you need more police or fire services, for instance. You're going to be put in those situations where you have to make up that millage rate differential, primarily, again, on your commercial and renter populations. Let's say over time, your home values will become largely out of sync with the actual values. So if you think about 20 years in the future, the home value can only move a maximum of 3%. So that means that homeowners that have been in their home for that entire 20-year period are then going to have, or they're going to be paying far less in property tax than anybody that just moved into the neighborhood, right? So you're going to have a major inequity there. One other item to consider, this isn't in the bill, but just from our perspective, that future borrowing cost may be a little bit imperiled here. So as you know, we're graded by the ratings agencies out of New York, such as Moody's, and what they do is they come in and take a holistic view of your ability to pay the bills, pay the notes, whenever we have to bond even something on the utility side, right? So if they say, well, you're opted in under this bill, you can only go up 3% in value, that probably places more burden on this council to ever raise a millage rate. We're gonna maybe not rate this next bond issuance quite as good, and the interest rate may be a little higher. So that's just one of those unintended consequences that we've been thinking about. And this is a permanent decision. So opting in, again, cedes this power of local home rule control to the state permanently. It doesn't say you can opt out in 10 years or 20 years. It's forever. Okay. So let's take a look real quick as to what has happened since 2021. In the bottom right corner there, I know it's hard to see. Since 2021, if we had only been locked in at a 3% value growth rate, given the millage rates you've set, we would have lost $1.886 million in actual real revenue that we would have to find new ways to make up for in the general fund. Folks, that's basically an entire department in the general fund. It doesn't mean that taxes are going to go up if you opt out. It only means that you have a better way to control your budget on a year-to-year basis. So, I think staff has heard many of you as we've talked about some of this, and that we probably still need to do something, right? We still need to have some fairness for our homeowners in the city, but one that we can control on a year-to-year basis, right? So one thing we could do is create our own Monroe-specific homestead exemption. For example, we could create a $5,000 homestead exemption for any qualified homeowner. It would cost us a little bit more in year one, about $65,000, but at least that's a number that we can control year to year. If you guys see the market CPI has really gone up, you can bump that up to 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, whatever you want to do year to year. And so we have 1,933 eligible properties right now. I'm sure that number will grow in the coming years. But this gives us a little bit more stability when we try to budget each year, and it gives us staff a little bit better idea what they need to operate on each and every year. There's also the chance that future legislation may come in and address the mess created by this. So, just talking to a lot of other city managers and county managers across the state, it's just a giant patchworks of opt-ins and outs for different reasons. And my bet is there will probably be some sort of future cleanup on this that may be more advantageous to us. The opt-out forever or opt-in forever situation is not a good one, not one that I see lasting for long. but I could be wrong. And also, just one thing to note on that FLOST, we have not had good traction on referendums for extra sales taxes. So it's unlikely that something like that would pass when you're just touting it as a replacement revenue. You're not getting anything really new for it. There's other things like a T-SPLOST that could probably prove more valuable to the city and the county should we go down that sales tax route again. I have plenty of other information from the other jurisdictions. I won't go into all that tonight, but I'm happy to take any questions. And again, we'll have 3 public hearings if you kind of give me the direction that you want to entertain opting out.
Are there any questions for Logan?
We would probably need to decide pretty soon.
Yeah.
Whether we opt in or opt out.
So we can hold the public hearings, and you don't decide that until probably February 20th is a date that I kind of punched out that we could hold that last public hearing and make that determination. So you can hear from the people, we can explain it to them over that time, but we have to do it pretty quickly, get that process started for advertising. Any other questions?
Jazz motion? David?
Well, I don't want to be flippant, but what are the 40 most dangerous days of the year? You know, this is a bill that superficially sounds like it's really, really good. When I first heard about it, I'm like, yeah, it's probably about time Georgia did something like that. But the problem, I think, is that when you dig into it, as Mr. Probst pointed out, there are an awful lot of unintended consequences. It was not well thought out, and I would hope that the legislature is going to revisit it and make some corrections. I think it's a very dangerous road to go down in terms of opting in. The other thing is that it does take away from your local power and local responsibility. And I see it as another move toward, let's just centralize everything, either with the state or with the federal government. Why let the local people make the decisions? Let's just let some higher up somewhere make them. So I just think it's very problematic.
Thank you. Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what David said. This bill's concerned me for a long time, as many of you know. And that mainly comes from the fact that taxation is one of the main things that your representatives are sent to decide about. It's one of the major powers of the government, and it's something that if the people aren't allowed to make the decision on who represents them and what that looks like, no matter who they elect, that's going to be bad for a community no matter what way you look at it. And if we're not able to fund the level of services and the people that we employ, that's not going to do anything but hurt our citizens. And again, I think it was excellent to say that superficially on the surface, it looks like, well, I'm not going to have to pay this, so that's better for me. But I don't believe that either this council or the people who have worked tirelessly for this city have mismanaged funds, and I don't think that you're going to find that anytime soon. And I don't think that viewing it in such a way as we need to reduce this is accurate for the city government. And so I hope that we will have the chance and the ability to work with our citizens to explain to them what happens if we get stuck in a certain threshold for the funds that we can help them with. The day I got elected was the day I understood how important taxes were. And I was like, how do we pay for all this? And I was like, oh, right. And so I think that once you realize that just like anything that you have to keep the lights on, you have to be very careful about what you spend and how you spend and make sure that your revenue keeps coming in. Not excessively, but as it should be. And the state has no way to accurately control that for each community. And so that's why we sit here and make those decisions. So again, I think it's important that we opt out because I think it's what's best for the city.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brown?
Well, I agree with both Tyler and David. You know, it looked good on the outside, but once you start reading and digging in, you got a whole different perspective. So I'm in agreement with David and Tyler on this one.
Thank you. Julie?
Ditto, I'm in agreement with these guys too. I think it's important to keep we know our community best here. We know the needs of our community, and I think it's important to keep those decisions here locally, so that we can be sure that we have the funds to provide the services that we do. I think it's important that we educate our citizens on why we're opting out, because I think a lot of people, on the surface, they're like, oh, wow, this is great. But I think that coming up with our own homestead exemption is going to be important because that's what people want. They want some sort of assistance and aid with their property taxes.
Thank you. I totally agree. And to emphasize, one of the main issues that we will face is that we have a high rental market here, and it's very tight. And the first thing that's going to happen with this to go into effect, every single one of them will have rates that will go through the roof. I mean, like immediate increases in rent, and it's going to really impact our downtown businesses too. So that sounds like a consensus to opt out. And you want to do the public hearings? Do we need official?
No, I just needed your general direction, and then we can go ahead and publish those notices of public hearings. And then at the final one, I'll need you to make a determination on that at a call meeting.
We do need to come up with a good public information plan, because as you know, this passed overwhelmingly. So,
Right.
Like everyone said, on the surface, it looks great. You just don't think about what it's gonna cost you. So I would hope we could come up with some kind of good talking points to get out to everybody.
Right, I totally agree. We'll do that and run it by you. Okay to move forward?
All good.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, sir. Over the next couple of weeks, you guys should get a notification email, or I'll fire out a text with a date that we're actually going to set the Monroe Sign Monument at the new park next to the museum and the Welcome Center. I'm working with IMEC, and we're trying to kind of pay attention to weather and what it's going to do so people can actually enjoy being there and not freeze while they're watching it. Also, along with the weather, we have a T-hanger project that is nearing completion. We are to the point of grading, and then we'll get to asphalt when weather and temperatures cooperate with us at the airport. That's been something that's much needed, and we're fortunate that we have private third parties that are willing to actually come out and invest and build T-hangers. Our taxiway project that was discussed over the last year was closed out with the Department of Transportation in the last, I guess it was the week before last, over the holidays. TAP grants we've talked about monthly. I've actually got one before you tonight on the agenda for a request for approval, and then you should see, as I've stated before, the bid for Lumpkin, Highland, and Broad go out this month. I actually spoke with Keckenwood around about 4 o'clock this afternoon, and they're finalizing the details of that bid. The hotel RFQ is out currently. It went live January 6th, closes April 3rd. I know Mr. Wilson will speak more to that when he gets to his report, but we've had some interest already kind of hit us. And then as far as downtown goes, our 20th annual car show is fast approaching. March 15th, we look to have the biggest, best one that we've had ever, and that's saying something. I know Sandy and her staff and myself and everyone, we're working diligently to try to get that to completion so we can kind of coast into things. If you have seen our year's event schedule, you'll notice that the Crepe Myrtle Festival is actually coming back to town this year in June, and then the Farm to Table's coming back. We'll actually hold that on the town green this year in October, so that'll be fun to have that back. This morning, we had our first downtown business owners meeting of 2025, and it was well attended. I was very proud to see the number of businesses that actually came out, and staff worked hard to get that situated and present a lot of things and a lot of discussions for the year ahead. And then the other thing I had is, if you'll notice, social media this past week and then this week, we have a lot of 2024 highlights from different departments. And last week, we had Public Works, we had Utilities. Monday, we had the airport. Today was Police. Tomorrow will be Finance. Thursday will be the Fire Department. And just trying to kind of throw out what it is we do and how much we did in 2024. And it was quite a bit. It's a little bit daunting when you actually look at the numbers and realize that that's what we did over the course of a year. So I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Are there any questions for Chris? I believe last year, Sandy, was that, you'd been hired for maybe a week when we had the car show? All right. Your turn. Good luck with that.
I am all for that.
Okay, moving to department reports. Mr. Croy, Central Services.
Yeah, and I kind of
not?
rolled over everything that kind of included his. He's out tonight.
Thank you. I noticed there was a blank seat as soon as I said his name. Mr. Calendar, Code.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief. Just to give the City Council an update on the Planning Commission from last month, there was no meeting, so there's no actionable items tonight for council. But we do have a meeting in January for one de-annexation request. It's for a property out on 78, a large-size tract that's just west of the city. I did want to brief the council on some residential construction that is ongoing in the city. Some projects are getting near completion, and I'm sure some of y'all are aware if you do right around the city. The project on Vine Street, the Vines of Monroe, I would estimate that it's about 2/3 complete. That represents approximately 220 dwelling units. They are in conversation with us about submitting a Phase 1 final plat, and I do expect to see that here in the next few months, so the council will be seeing a final plat on that pretty soon. The Jacks Creek Apartments out on Highway 78, I do expect to see that project completed in the next 2 or 3 months. So they're very near completion. They have almost finished the last 2 buildings, and they may actually wrap it up sooner rather than later. So in the next month, they may actually be complete and asking for certificates of occupancy on their project and getting it completed so they can start renting out apartments. The project on Alcovey Street, Hambrick Station, that's been there for quite some time. I believe they've started development this past week. There's been an LDP issued on that one for quite some time. And then River Point, some of y'all may be familiar, Cedar Ridge Road. It's been ongoing development now for a past year. They're getting very near submittal of their Phase 1 final plat, but they have done the development on the entire project, and they're getting very close. We're also in a pre-application discussion with them of submitting their final plat. They're eager to submit theirs within the next week or 2, so City Council should expect to see a final plat application from them in the coming months. And then the active projects that we have in the city, River's Edge, as y'all remember last year that was final platted, hasn't submitted any building permits, but it is obviously active in the city. That was 105 lots. And Brooklyn Commons, I did want to mention to the council, that was platted by this council back in October. That was developed by McKinley Homes, but that was transferred to D.R. Horton. As far as the city's concerned, it was official notification. The bond transfer occurred last week. And that paperwork was given to the city, and it was given over to D.R. Horton. That represented 142 lots. We've been in some pre-application discussion for various projects that involve the new form-based code, some small infill lots, and I've already subdivided a few properties in the core of the city that are beneficiaries of the new form-based code, so that's a good thing, and one project that would possibly come from that. And then the permits are pretty much on average than on normal for the code office. That's pretty much all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Calendar? Thank you, Brad. Mr. Wilson, Economic Development.
Good evening. So I won't spend too much time on the hotel RFQ. Chris covered most of that as far as the dates are concerned. I will mention in the report the link is there, so if anybody wants that or wants to take a look at it, you can go directly to it or you can search for it. pretty easily just Googling it. But we do have, at this point, we had about 4, I think is what's come in. I haven't seen the total for sure. Folks that have expressed interest. I think one that has actually followed the rules and the procedure for it and sent in that to Chris Croy already. So we've got that part, at least one of them in, and I think there's one more that's pretty serious and a couple that not sure just yet. So, but again, still open until April the 3rd, 2 o'clock, and will remain so until then. We've got 2 ads that we're announcing that in the Tribune the last 2 Sundays, and the last one will be this Sunday on the 19th, and then that'll close out the ad for it. So. As far as the Facebook page and social media, so we currently are at 1,300 plus followers, which is up right at about 87%. It's the biggest uptick we've had month to month. Just over this last month, it was kind of weird in December, being fairly slow for most things, but we got a lot of new and additional followers, doing a couple of different things with the page too, but the growth was good to see. And 6 posts for December, which is pretty normal for, for properties and for promotions. Lastly, the business activity downtown. So we had 9 license additions, and then we had one of those was in the DDA, and there were 4 deletions. One of those, again, was in the DDA. And then for the year, we had 103 added as far as new businesses added or new licenses issued, and minus 100. So it was plus 3 for the year there. And then for the DDA, it was plus 27 and minus 26, so plus 1 for the year there. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Wilson? Did you want to introduce your intern?
Yeah, I can. We told him he had to make a speech, but I don't know if I want to do that. We've got Graydon here. You stand up if you want to. I'm not going to make you talk if you don't want. But Graydon's actually with us from George Walton Academy. He's been interning. It's kind of a mini internship that they've been doing, and he actually joined us, I think, last Tuesday. Is that right? He went to the House Bill meeting, I think, with you. It was Tuesday?
Monday, yeah.
Or Monday, sorry. And so started with me on Tuesday. And I've technically got him until Friday. I don't know if I'm going to keep him until Friday because we're almost hitting his 40 hours. That's their requirement. So we're almost there. He's had a long day today. He may help me out on Thursday or Friday doing something for Greg over here. But beyond that, I think he's had a pretty good experience. Got to see a little bit of the town and some of the things that we do day to day and trying to, locate properties and help people out. And he's been this meeting, the DDA meeting, Convention of Visitors Bureau. He's also at the business owners meeting this morning. So getting a well-rounded experience, I think.
Awesome. Graydon, thank you for participating. Thank you all. Yes, sir, thank you. Ms. Thompson, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. You have the November report in front of you. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I won't dive into the numbers of that. Just a couple highlights. We are moving into our busiest time of the year in finance. We're going into the annual audit season. We are engaged with Malden and Jenkins again this year. I started working on preliminary information the last week of December, and that will run through about March. Malden Jenkins team will be here to conduct their field work starting February 10th, and they'll be here for about 2 weeks doing that. Leading up to that and after that, we'll do all of our file sharing on their platform that they do. So most of it now is electronic, even though they're not here physically, only here for 2 weeks. All the other goes home electronically between us. We did just roll out a new timekeeping system for all our employees. I know they're all tired of hearing about me about their time, but we got it all done today, and they will get their payment this week for working the last 2 weeks. So I'm glad to hang my hat on that and get that behind us until next 2 weeks. But that was a big project. Glad we got that one done. We got a couple other projects, a Tantalus AMI that I'm working with Mr. Middlebrooks and Mr. McGuire on. We're still in the midst of all that. And the AP automation that I mentioned, we're going to put that on the back burner because of some changes that we're going through in the finance team. So we'll probably roll that out mid-year. But that's all I have. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? Thank you, Beth. Chief Dykes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have, in your packet, the incident data from November, which seems like so long ago at this point with everything that's gone on the past few weeks. Just a few highlights from that. We did respond to the most calls this November than in the previous 5 years, so that continues to be a trend with call volume going up. I will say with that also that we were very much on the receiving end, the positive receiving end of aid during that month. We received aid from Walton County 9 times, and we only provided it 2 times. And part of that was because we had 3 fires with significant reportable losses. And so what typically happens, because we don't plan those things, our units are tied up on a fire, and then the other calls continue to come into the city, and then the county picks those up for us so that there's no lapse in service. So again, that's where that automatic aid agreement with them works out well. On more recent things that have been going on, I do want to give a shout out to all the other city departments for how well this past weekend went with the winter weather. We had 23 incidents in that Friday to Saturday period. The 2 most significant one was an entrapment within a vehicle that had gone over a guardrail and down an embankment. Cutting someone out of a vehicle that's down an embankment is difficult enough on a regular basis, but one thing we don't train for is how to do that when the embankment is covered in ice and snow. And so that proved to be a little bit difficult and some additional challenges, but that patient was extricated successfully and was flown to a trauma center. I do not have an update on his condition. And then we did have amongst all the trees and limbs down, we did have one that struck a house that had some significant damage. Operationally and administratively, we have a new hire that will be filling our last full-time vacancy that was created in December. That gentleman will be starting on the 29th. Much like Beth in finance, we're in the process of transitioning over to an entirely new records management system, which I don't recommend anyone do because you don't realize how much stuff in terms of data you have in different places until you try to compile all that into a system and it reads properly. So we're working weekly with integration specialists trying to build the different modules. But the benefit of this is that this will have all of our records in one place, whether it's incident response, pre-plans, scheduling, inspections from the fire marshal's office, investigations, and so forth in one place. And then lastly, 5 of us went to Gypstick today and attended the 8-hour update on ISO because I anticipate that to happen within the next 2 years for our next update. And so trying to get as many officers on board and familiar with that process as possible so that hopefully all of our data will be transferred and readable and printable by the time that comes around, so that we'll be ready for that. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions for Chief Dykes? Thank you, Andrew. Chief Watts?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a year-end highlights for us, and I know Chris spoke earlier about posting on social media. If you haven't already looked at that, I encourage you all to take a look at that. The numbers are really good. So I'm just going to highlight a few things here. We ended the year with over 27,000 calls for services. Our officers did perform over 135,000 area checks. And that, I believe, is what attributes to the numbers we have right here. So our overall crime is down. Crimes against persons was down 25%. Crimes against property was down 27%. And crimes against society is down 47%. And our overall total offenses is actually down by 30%. And our clearance of our cases is up from 41% last year to 43% this year. So those numbers are great. Another highlight is, we every year at the end in December, we do the shop with a cop. So we were able to sponsor over 20 kids during that. So that was a plus for us. But the recent thing that we just had that's a real big win, I feel like, for our department is in 2016, I don't know if y'all remember, we had a homicide over on Barron Drive. Victim was Anthony Sims. And, it turned to a cold case. And working in conjunction with GBI, processing the scene, and we're able to recover the victim's vehicle that was taken from the scene at another location. I can't really go in a whole lot on the case, but we did recover the vehicle at another location. Processing that vehicle, we were able to retrieve evidence that led us to a suspect. So this past week or last week, we had one of our detectives with GBI go to North Carolina, where we interviewed this suspect who was already in custody for another violent crime, and we were able to charge him with the murder, ag assault, and also theft by receiving. That suspect is going to be a Quamel Lamont Saunders. I don't know if anybody knows who that is, but that's who's being charged with the murder of that Anthony Sims. And I know that's a long time coming. And that's one of the worst things I think you could have as law enforcement, have a case you can't solve. So it's been a lengthy process, but to be able to kind of bring some closure to this, to the families and stuff, is a huge win for us. So, other than that, I could go on about other cases as well, but I mean, I think that's pretty significant, and very proud of our men and women, and our numbers speak volumes. So, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
That sounds fantastic. Are there any questions for the chief? Thank you, RV. Danny Smith, Solid Waste.
Thank you, Mayor. November report, we collected 119 mattresses at curbside. We did recover a little over $1,000 for some that we billed out over 82. And our tonnage report, transfer station report, we still trending 35% less than we were in 2022. Of course, the rates went up in 23, so we pretty much, it is tied to revenue. So when the rates went up, customers kind of went other places to get a better rate. But we're trending about the same as we were last year for 24. The only other thing I have is we run the modified schedule next week, a holiday schedule for MLK Day. Monday customers Tuesday, Tuesday customers Wednesday, Wednesday customers Thursday, and Friday customers be picked up on, Thursday customers be picked up on Friday. And I also just want to add and take the time to commend our staff for the work they did during the Christmas holiday and New Year's Day holiday. They collected, they performed 4 routes in 2 days. That's very rare in this industry. That don't happen often. Usually we do what we're doing next week. We'll push route back because of the stress that can put on equipment and the staffing. But they did it. They was committed to do it. We collected 1.3 million pounds of garbage in 2 weeks. That don't even include yard waste. Over 650 tons. And it also gave us a good idea and a good experience with let us know the value of the sidearms, because it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have those sidearm units. Other than that, I know we're in transition with the guidelines. We still having customers calling. Some of you guys probably been getting calls also about stuff being left behind. But it is a process. We still need to get the notices out to the customers that that sidearm is designed for a one-man operation. We do send trucks out to pick up the overflow. Sometimes it's not because of the holiday and the snow and everything else. We're a little bit off schedule, but the overflow will get picked up. It's just a process. So I take any other questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Smith?
If they have overflow, do they need to call, or do they just automatically come back around?
Yeah, they should call. Now, the driver is documenting the mailboxes, the obstructions. He documented those, and he called our customer service, and we kind of follow up and just go take care of it.
How are we on schedule with the leaf truck?
It's running.
Okay. I mean, I know there's a lot out there. I just didn't know if we're going full bore at it. Okay, I'm coming to you anyway. Thank you, Danny. Mr. Still.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start with the leaf truck. It runs 40 to 60 hours a week, every week, and it will through February? End of February. Yeah, they're running, actually, the staff allows a truck and the leaf wagon. So it's getting double teamed for 40 to 60, sometimes, 5 to 7 days a week sometimes. So they're out and about. Unless there's any questions about the report, I'll just highlight what we have going on currently. Last time we were doing this, I mentioned the words winter maintenance, not knowing that would entail what it did last week. So I'm not going to say we're doing that, although we're working on cold weather stuff. I would like to highlight the fact that it's times like Friday and Friday night and Saturday that I think our city's at its finest. collaboration with multiple departments, and minimal issue throughout that span. As fast as that stuff dumped on us, it could have been really bad, and we were fortunate with some weather events. I'm a firm believer of we get what we need when we need it. About lunchtime Friday when it started raining, we needed the rain bad to get rid of a lot of that stuff. But once it started, we were able to clear all the collector streets, some of the secondary streets, within a matter of hours, and it really made a difference overnight with those freezing temps into that next day and even into Sunday. So we went around the clock for a couple of days, and it paid off as far as securing our infrastructure and the safety of it. So I'm sure none of my guys are watching, but if they are, good job publicly. Don't get to brag on them too often, but they did a great job there. And while doing so, it showed some spots that we need some improvement on, so our winter maintenance plan changed a little bit. It's going to make us more efficient. Hopefully not a week from today when they're calling for some other stuff, but if it does come, we'll be ready. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Still? Thank you, Jeremiah. Mr. McGuire?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, 2024 is wrapped up. You'll notice in the report for last month, usually we list down the areas that we've turned up infrastructure that's been in place for a while and got spliced up to make available for customers. And if you notice looking in the report, it looks a little blank. And mostly due to the holidays, a lot of our contractors took some time off during the holidays. But one thing I did note in there that we did end up having is we had a lot of infrastructure damage for the month of December, just random things, squirrel shoes, trucks tearing stuff down, and apartment complexes that we're working with find out that things were put in the wrong spot, and so we had to go back and redo it for whatever the reason. So a lot of our time last month was ate up with damage repairs and things that we had to do. But even with that in hand, we still maintain a regular install schedule that we had. We still ended up with 125 completed fiber installations. We're officially over the 60/40 threshold now. So while it might look like nothing got done from an infrastructure standpoint, rest assured we were pretty busy. And that got me thinking, for 2024, I wanted to see just, where did we spend our time and what were we doing? So I actually polled all of the work orders for the telecom department in 2024 to take a look. And we did 8,159 work orders for the year of 2024. If you break that down into business days, that's about 32 work orders a day. And some of those work orders can take an hour and a half to do, just depending on the severity of what's going on. I would say it was 76% of those were handled by us, the city. So only 24% of those were really handled by contractors, and my contracting crews, all they're doing is installations. They're not really doing trouble tickets. They're not doing really repairs. So when I really got looking at the work order load that the city, our staff actually does, 60% of those 8,000 work orders that we had were handled directly by us. And of those 60%, excuse me, let me take that back. 76% we did. Of those work orders that we did, 60% of those were just trouble ticket related only. So that's not new installations or disconnects, it's 60%. So that's close to just about every truck roll that we do on a given day. A large majority of them are trouble tickets. Now you might think, wow, 6%, that's high, that's terrible, that looks bad. When you break down the results, because I'm the type of guy who keeps track of this type of stuff, less than a third of those were really issues that were legitimately our problems. And so what I mean by that is we roll out to somebody's house and a ONT wasn't plugged up, or I literally had somebody call and request a credit for internet service for last month because their computer was broke. And I said, well, I don't think I can do that. But it's an alarming number of issues that we get out in the field that we dispatch people to. We come to realize that a lot of these problems are not service impacting problems. We get out there and the fiber's operating as it's supposed to be. Oh, my router was switched off, my surge protector was off, my ONT was unplugged, I had something plugged in the wrong place. My TV was on the wrong input. I mean, there's a long list there. So, you know, one of the goals moving into this year, I'd like to see that number drastically reduce. Not only just the overall trouble ticket number itself, but the number of issues that I'd like to try to get to resolve those before we get out in front of somebody's house. You know, save a trip here, save a trip there. And I think having 2 individuals come into the support center and a fully staffed support center now, the telecom department is making impact into that. We're seeing a lot more people out in the field and on the ground, so that's great. So, you know, we're busy folks, day in and day out there. And coming up for 2025, we got a couple of projects, and I noted there in the report there, bond project should be coming this year. We're hoping to get Monroe completed and finished. There's a little snapshot of a picture I put in there. It's kind of a bird's eye view and kind of hard to see, but if you take a look at it, you'll see a bunch of green and orange. The green is what's completed, what's done, where we're actively serving fiber to our customers. And there's a lot of green on there and just a very little bit of orange left. So we're looking to get that wrapped up and completed this year. I talked about our Arista CIP project that we're kicking off this year, upgrading our core infrastructure. We just literally had a customer inquire today about what services can the city of Monroe offer. Can y'all offer a 5 gig circuit? Not yet, but once we get this Arista gear in, we actually will have capabilities to even offer more bandwidth than what we're offering our customers now. So we're pretty excited about that. We actually have a link in a circuit with Georgia Transmission Corporation that's going to be completed here in the next couple of months. We're really excited about that because the completion of that will actually give us access to a full diverse path for our network and our bandwidth here in the city. And why might that be exciting? Well, on December 20th, we noticed one day that we were having issues in the afternoon. Something just wasn't right, and we got looking, and our current provider, for whatever the reason, we lost half of our bandwidth just out of the blue and unknowing to us. Naturally, we scrambled and made some phone calls, got their engineering staff on the phone, and by midnight that night, we got it fixed. But having a full diverse path out, if that was in place, when something like that happens, we can easily, with a few key clicks, just redirect that traffic someplace else with very minimal impact to the city's infrastructure and the network. So that's something we're really excited about and to get completed here in the next couple of months. And then the last thing that we're really targeting is heading into 2025, we really want to be aggressive in going after cable modem holdouts. These folks that are just for whatever the reason don't want to switch over, or we've made several appointments with them, and every time we show up, they're just not there, or I'll have to reschedule. So we're going to start floating deadlines with the next couple of months in these areas where fiber's been available and let these customers know, hey, it's coming. We're fixing to cut your physical infrastructure off. So either you've got to make the switch over to fiber or find some alternate method for your internets. But it's time to start decommissioning the cable plant as we wrap up this bond project. So it's pretty much all we got going on. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
That's it? A little bit.
I talk a lot, I know.
Yeah, I think everybody else feels your pain from me. Are there any questions for Mr. McGuire?
This year, have we already made the bundle with the home phone and the?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we have. And actually, we worked with Ms. Thompson on that to actually pass the rate codes for that, and that actually is in place and available now. So we do have bundled rates for fiber and phone service.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Middlebrooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be real quick. Today, we finished up the gas line to the jail. Passed its pressure test and gassed up and ready to go. So proud to have that project done. All utilities are now on site and complete. Quick update on the current CDBG. The contractor is back in town to make the repairs. I think they've made 6 out of the 13 now. So hopefully we'll be completed again here in a few weeks. And then we're also, we just finished up all our initial camera work and records, going through all the records to try to find the stuff we need for the 2025 sewer grant. This is going to replace the sewer along West Marable, now King Street, Perry Street, Green Street, and G.W. Carver. May end up being a 2-year project. We'll have to see if it's money-wise, just how much it's gonna take to do it. And then like everyone else said, the electric deal or the storm deal, we definitely dodged another bullet. I counted up a while ago, I think we had from 2:30 on Friday to 12 noon on Sunday, we had 23 calls. Never had any power out more than 30 minutes. So it was, crews did an excellent job, and we were ready.
Thank you.
Wasn't much, glad it wasn't any worse.
Thank you for getting those letters out to those folks in Glen Iris so I knew what was going on. I appreciate that.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Middlebrooks? Thank you, Rodney. Mr. Croy, T-Mobile USA agreement is not here. Chris Bailey?
Thank you, sir. This is a request of council to enter into what is the Fifth Amendment to an agreement with T-Mobile, formerly known as Sprint, for a 10-year extension on the current lease for space here in town for cellular service. It increases the amount of, I think, payment annually to $40,000, and then there's a one-time payment of $5,000 to the city. So,
Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey? Did we have this budgeted? Is this a surprise?
I mean, this is to us.
Right. Did we have this expectation?
Logan, no, I mean.
I don't think we
really?
budgeted that full amount.
No.
But it's a significant increase over current $5,000 per year.
Right.
Not too shabby. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion, please.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Sams. Second?
Second.
Give that one to Ms. Crawford. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Mr. Calendar, Code Department fee schedule change?
Thank you, Mayor. Just have 4 changes to make to the Code Department fee schedule. It's adding 4 fees, 2 for 2 procedures you already had in your zoning ordinance that we didn't have fees for. That would be for annexations and de-annexations. We're asking that the fees be added for the cost of $250 for submittals of applications for that procedure. And we have also another procedure that's existing in our ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance or development regulations. That's currently basically free of charge. There is no fee of that. We're asking that to be $500. And then with your current amendments that you just done, you just passed there last month, we're asking for the regulating plan amendments, if there are any that happen in the future, that be at the cost of $500. And for administrative special exception variances, we're asking that cost to be $100 for applicants. Those are the 4 changes, or basically additions to the fee schedule. And that's all that I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Brad? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Gregory. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to LMIG allocation approval. Mr. Still?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What you have in front of you is the 2025 application for the LMIG program. That's our annual paving program. This year, the total is $268,726.42, to which $62,013.79 is our 30% match coming from SPOS funds. The project this year will include deep patching, milling, overlay and striping on Sorrel Street and East Marable. Almost 2 miles. Pretty good bang for the buck. Be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeremiah? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Boyce. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Crawford. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Bailey, TAP grant proposal.
Thank you, sir. This is a request for approval of the fee proposal from Thomas and Hutton engineering firm for the TAP grant that we have planned for Davis, Madison, and Mears. It's not to exceed $320,238.60, and it's that entire block that's over on adjacent the town green on the back side of it. And it's for streetscapes, lighting, everything that's tied to the DOT grant.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions? Mr. Bailey? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Dickinson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to new business for the election of the vice mayor. I spoke with Ms. Malcolm this afternoon. She said she'd be more than happy to serve another term. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion to, for Ms. Malcolm to remain as vice mayor for the 2025 year. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Brown. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the approval of 2025 qualifying fees. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. According to our code and Georgia State Code, we need to set our 2025 election qualifying fees before February 1, so we can get the notices out to the newspaper and to Walton County Elections Office. So what we're going to do for districts 3, 6, and 8 this year is $288. That'll be the qualifying fee based on the current salaries, and for the office of mayor, $432 based on that current salary.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Logan? Hearing none, all in favor, how about this? I need a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. And a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to district items, Ms. Malcolm's not here. Ms. Crawford?
No.
Nothing from your district, Mr. Boyce? Ms. Sams?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes, actually.
Thank you.
Glad to be back. I missed you guys in December. And Happy New Year to everyone. And really what I want to say is thank you to the City of Monroe Police Department for that cold case that they solved. Mr. Sims was a friend of mine.
I'm sorry.
And it meant a lot to get that call to say that that case has been solved and it's closed, and it brought a lot of closure for all of us. I also want to publicly acknowledge Chief Glass for keeping me in the loop for all of these years to let me know that, you know, it was being worked on. So thank you so much for your work and what you do and your dedication, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Gregory?
I just want to say thanks to everybody for keeping the lights on, keeping the streets clear. I appreciate y'all. And having 2 babies changes that situation a lot. You certainly want that to happen a lot more than you did when you were young and single. I'm just sitting there like, God, please keep these lights on. You know? And I appreciate the fact that God has y'all in place taking care of that. I really do. And I reached out to a couple of you. I didn't get to everybody. I do appreciate everybody, and I know that you guys are there. And I really do appreciate that how hard y'all work to make sure that we're taken care of. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Thompson?
Just want to thank the good Lord for the pretty snow and everybody that had to work in it for the city. Saw Rodney's crew out and just, you know, excellent job with public service. Everybody just, we appreciate it on our end, and can't say enough about you guys of what y'all do.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Dickinson?
I think Mr. Thompson said it all for me. I really love this city. I love the people that work for it. This is just a wonderful place to be, and I'm glad I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. My turn, and I'll be very quick, Maisha. We have 2 young ladies from Leadership Walton in the back that came and sat through this. I think we all give them a hand. Natalie and Tracy, thank you for being here. We have the retreat on the 30th. Legislative breakfast is January 27th at the Omni Right. That's during GMA. I have talked to 2 of the 3 of our delegation and they expect to join. So if you can make it, I'd love to have you. And again, I'm, as ever, amazed at every single one of the people on our team for making it through the snow so professionally and efficiently and safely. So thank you so much. I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Thompson, a second by Ms. Crawford. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Thank you, everybody.